we can do that, and we'll just sort of intro once I get audition up.
I'm just like advertising PJ today.
Yeah. I wish I were. Well, I mean, I'm in green in solidarity, but then again, I'm always in green.
It's very true.
So if we're live streaming and anybody out there happens to be listening to us, hi, I'm Alex. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Globe. And we are going to do the Globe podcast streaming live for the first time ever. We're kind of figuring that one out as we go along. But it is the 50th anniversary of the Globe tomorrow, and we're going to record our Globe podcast, talk about what's in this very special 12-page long edition of the Point Park Globe, and it's going to be fun. So
It's going to be good. It's going to be cool.
It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. I mean, it is huge. This thing, we've only ever done like 8 pages, and then if we got lucky, we'd do 10 pages, like if we had enough content. Well, this time around, we had enough to do, I want to say, about 8.5 pages. And then on Friday, we got the call that Cab decided they wanted to run a full-page ad. And I decided already ahead of time that I wanted to run a special section for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
That way we're not, what they did in 1997 is the whole paper was dedicated to their 30th anniversary.
Nice.
And we were like, okay, that's cool, but let's do a commemorative section and then run the rest of it as we usually would. So what we decided on was basically an 8-page paper. We gave opinions an extra page, kind of to call homage to the original version of the Globe, which was a front and back opinions pamphlet anyway. And then we ran our special section, and so we have 12 pages, and I cannot tell you the last time we've done 12 pages. I know it's been done before. I know in 97 they did it for their Halloween edition and got in a lot of trouble because they didn't ask anybody if they could do it. They just did it.
Halloween perks.
But, Halloween. So, yeah, it's been quite the adventure. Getting this, and now I'm just my honest inner terror at this point is that we sent off the edition this morning, right? My terror is that the Trib, just for whatever reason, either doesn't get it to Point Park or didn't hit print.
I mean,
it's not realistic,
but it's a possibility.
Oh yeah, because I don't trust. I do not trust technology at all.
It's marvelous when it works.
Absolutely.
Well, should we have an actual intro?
Oh,
do you guys want to do it?
Absolutely. That was just
that's
random
good.
off the side.
Hey, that's okay. Let's start the
jazzy. They would have played this in the 60s.
I think our microphones are echoing.
Yeah, because we're going through the PC, which is bouncing back.
Did it fix it?
Yep.
Yes.
Nope.
Well, I think so. How's it picking up the PC then?
That's interesting.
So that makes that. Oh, I know what it is. Hold on one second.
You know what it is?
Yep. It's because you have to mute that.
Aha.
And I believe
there we are.
That then we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So it's actually the Wirecast.
Just working out things, folks.
Okay.
That's cool.
And here we are. Everybody out there watching and listening, welcome to the Globe podcast in coordination with WPPJ here at the CMI live broadcasting on YouTube, which is awesome that we can do this.
Yeah.
From WPPJ to the Globe, congratulations on 50 years of print, Alex. Thank you for...
That's the golden anniversary, right?
Yes, the golden anniversary.
Golden.
So, congratulations. And what's in the Globe this week? Let's talk about it.
Well, first off, thank you guys. Thanks for having this partnership, and also for... we did a lot of research in doing this edition, and one of the things that kept coming up throughout the entirety of the Globe existence, because we started around the same time as WPPJ, is this awesome back and forth between WPPJ and the Globe. And we'd have Globe headlines read over the air, and you'd see advertisements in like the 70s and 80s of just a little bit that says, listen to WPPJ for Globe headlines. And so it's great to continue a partnership and to do even more fun things things like this. So
it is. I'm happy that we have the CMI now, and
absolutely,
you and I have worked together to do this semester, and I'm sure that you'll keep it going with whomever takes my spot next semester. Not to exclude our other guest, Paul Fields is back.
Well, yeah, but we're both graduating.
I know,
so
but just for today, we'll introduce you.
I don't really
Paul.
have much of a torch to pass on. I could pass a mic.
You could.
I don't know if I can pass vocals.
Sure.
I can try that.
You could take Dave Fabili's spot as the announcing professor.
Ha! Sure.
You
I
would
just be great at
you could work with Dave.
Students.
How about you work with him?
I'll be Dave's TA after graduating.
There you go. So yes, we're happy to be here. This is great, and we'll talk about what's in the
we're going to
news.
talk about what's in the Globe.
And a very special edition of the Globe.
A very, very, very special edition. A couple of things that I do want to point out on the front page. Number one, we have 12 pages to this edition. We never run with 12 pages, but this week we had the content. We're running a special section, as is teased on the front page above the fold. We have a special 2-page spread all about our 50th anniversary and what 50 years of collegiate journalism looks like. But on top of that, we also replaced our usual header, our usual masthead, with the original masthead from the Globe. We scanned from the 1967 copy, and we took the ink and photoshopped all the papery bits out, and so we are running with the same header that we ran 50 years ago in 1967, and also with that, it is 50 years to the day. When we hit newsstands, we will be 50 years to the day, which I think is so cool.
That is.
And another thing that we decided to do along with doing the 50th anniversary edition is we wanted to run our news sections, our features sections, our opinions, everything like we normally do, because there's still news happening. We can't just look back. So that's kind of an overarching theme. We're looking back, but also looking forward.
Right.
So on our front page, we have a couple of stories. One is actually a features piece that really well done by Francesca DeBecco, and she brought us the story of how about a week ago, I think it was, Korean War veterans spoke at a luncheon that the honors program put together, and it's through what's called the Veterans Breakfast Club, I believe. It's ran by a guy named Todd DiPestino, and what they do is they go to different places, and any veteran that wants to tell their story can. Now, this was a special edition of the Veterans Breakfast Club held by the honors program here at Point Park, and particularly spotlighting Korean War vets. Now, last year I think they were talking about WASPs, the women who served in World War II.
Right.
And the years following. So it's a really, really fascinating piece. Definitely worth the read. Right on our front page. Additionally, we have a brief of what our friends up at Pitt, they call it Watergeddon, but we weren't affected. There was a flush and boil water advisory that affected a large swath of Pittsburgh, like the better part of Pittsburgh, basically everywhere that is fed from the Highland Park Reservoir.
Right.
And Point Park was not affected. The only building that was affected was the Point Park Playhouse, which is, of course, in Oakland. The Pittsburgh Playhouse out in Oakland. We were spared. The rest of the campus was spared. But Robert Berger basically chronicles what happened, how people dealt with it up at the Playhouse, and how everything's safe now. Everything's good. The boil water advisory was lifted on, I think, Friday, and all is well in the kingdom again.
It's good. Yeah, it was lifted rather quickly.
I think it happened over maybe a day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole thing, from, oh my goodness, this might be a thing, to, okay, we're 100% clear, was 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was. It was about that, because I believe it was Thursday they made a big announcement, and
I
had the press conference, and Friday I went to the Pens game, and afterwards I went to Oakland to visit some friends, and we had to go to CVS because there was no water.
Yeah.
So, there was water, but we didn't want to drink that water. So,
right.
But by Saturday morning, it was cleared, which is great, because, how many days can a place like Oakland, which I think is, if I remember correctly, the second largest metro area in Pennsylvania behind Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's bigger than, Harrisburg, obviously, but downtown Pittsburgh on any given day. So Yeah, it's great that it was lifted so quickly and they took care of it, because that could have been disastrous. So that's great.
Very
That's
much
good.
so.
My more humorous anecdote on that one is I went to CVS over on Fifth Avenue or wherever, like a couple of blocks away from
Yeah.
the CMI, and I walked in and I was just getting, I don't know if it was like soap or something random, but I walk in and I'm met by 5 pallets worth of cases of water.
Yep.
This is in the middle of the advisory. It must have been like Thursday night, and I'm looking around like, wow. I mean, this is crazy. But you guys do realize it's because of slight underchlorination. It's not
Yeah.
because of, they found something ridiculous in the water.
Like in Butler County, where they have E. coli and lead in their water for the school systems, which is a whole nother.
Or in Flint, Michigan. I
Or
mean,
in Flint.
that was a lot of the commentary that some of my friends were presenting was, okay, we got over this in 2 days. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have drinkable water, guys.
So
That was one of those yikes moments.
So in the
Yes.
grand scheme of things, it happened. It was humorous for a minute to have a like a hashtag Watermageddon, but at the end of the day,
Water.
it's above the fold because not much happened this week.
Right.
Let's be real. In the way of Point Park news,
The Monongahela. I was going to say the Mon Wharf story sounds. I didn't read into it because I actually just got the page open here. But can you say a little bit about the Mon Wharf? Because I know
Yeah,
students. It's a big commuter campus.
So where this came from is a couple of weeks ago we were looking at some more recent editions of the Globe, and we were talking about how it's interesting how this semester we've seen an uptick in every week we do a crime report. Whether or not it gets published is dependent on how much space we have. But the crime report, we've been seeing more and more things that were listed as Mon Wharf as the location. And so Man and Riley went to the public safety department and dug a little bit into this. And it turns out while the Mon Wharf is not necessarily a part of Point Park's campus, it is at the edge of it, and so it's not technically within public safety's like main and primary jurisdiction, but they have increased patrols down there. Not a lot, not by a lot. Lieutenant Black had mentioned that Lieutenant Nicholas Black. I was blanking on his first name. Lieutenant Nicholas Black was saying that this is normal patrols. They do a couple of sweeps down there, but there has been an uptick in crime, primarily drug violations, and it's a question of why. But it's also, I mean, an expansion of Point Park Police are looking out for the students here. It's just there's an increase of crime and patrols down on the wharf as a result. Now, Chief Bisong, the chief of police for Point Park, said pretty blatantly, students, you shouldn't be hanging out down there simply because it's not the best place to hang out.
Right.
And they talk about a growing homeless population that is taken to there and a growing drug population, not drug population, but, people using drugs down at the wharf because they see it's under cover, it's not well lit.
It's hard for police to get in and out of there when it's not open. I mean, really, it's, if they make one run through, there's a million places for people to hide or not be seen by. It's a good place for the homeless population to hang out. It absolutely is. So
Well, and also you have to worry whenever we get those alerts, even if it's just a Point Park student was attacked at this location, they always give you the tips of, make sure you're in well-lit, well-populated areas. Take out your earbuds, be aware of your surroundings. Those are just some, I don't want to say basic things, but they're pretty foundational to making sure you're getting around in a city safely.
yeah, absolutely. And the wharf, it's not easily accessible for people. It's not well lit. And, you're kind of off the beaten trail. There's not a lot of people
Kind
downtown
of the
in Pittsburgh.
opposite of all three of those things.
Exactly. There's not that many people downtown in Pittsburgh in the evenings as it is. So, be somewhere that is safe
once
and
after-
populated, like Market Square. Go hang around there.
Yeah, once after rush hour, you kind of want to start going inside.
Yeah.
That's basically what Chief Bisong says, and that's the crux of the piece. There has been an uptick in crime, but at the same time, be safe, because that is an area that is not controlled by Point Park. They do patrol it for our safety to make sure that no one is coming onto our property, jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it. But they're doing their best, and it shows that that's the counter to okay, there's an uptick in crime reports. Oh no, but at the same time, that proves we're catching crime. So
Right.
I think that's an important point to note.
Very true.
So yeah, the United Student Government. 2 things came out of their meeting. We cover them every week, and we have for forever. But this week, two main things came out of it. They added a social media standards to their bylines. This stems not directly, but stems partially from some incidents with. I want to say we ran the story last semester where a USG senator had said something about how he believed his he's now a former senator. He resigned because he believed his views were being squashed, kind of a thing. And what the legislative body and executive board was basically telling that senator was, when you become a senator at Point Park, you become a quasi-public figure. I mean, it's not, you're not a U.S. senator, but at the same time,
You still represent the USG.
Yeah, you are representing USG and you are representing the university. So that it's long overdue to talk to USG would say it's kind of long overdue because they have run into issues in the past, specifically with Facebook posts, even going back as far as 2014. But yeah, they put that in line or into their bylaws, as well as they talked with WTW Architects, which is a firm that is the leader, I guess, of our the Point Park University master space plan. Basically, the idea of what spaces do we want to occupy, what spaces do we want to lease, because administration is always looking to see, what do we have, what can we use, what do we need. And the one thing, there are 2 main things that students want to see out of a master space plan. Number 1, more housing.
That'd be nice.
And number 2, more parking.
Yeah.
And one of these things is a bit more achievable than the other. That being
Parking?
I'd argue that housing is a bit more achievable because you can take office spaces that you do a master lease on, turn it around and make them into. I mean, that's what they did with Conestoga and Pioneer.
That's true.
And that's what they did with the Boulevard Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if, 1 or 2 of the office buildings in the general surrounding area could be turned around into housing. Parking, you run into. You either build construction or you buy off of the Pittsburgh Parking Authority,
Which is very expensive either way.
Yeah.
Yep, I understand that
So
logic now.
it's one of those things where they're constantly evaluating. It's the double-edged sword having a downtown campus, because on one hand you have access to great things and you have access to a lot of people and connections and events and that kind of a thing. But the other side to that is you are limited in space. That's why we're a vertical campus and not, this sprawling quads everywhere, because otherwise that would be the entirety of the city of Pittsburgh.
Exactly.
So, and that'd be ridiculously
Pittsburgh,
expensive.
the college city.
And the last thing in our news section this week, we talk about the internship and job fair, which is happening on Thursday. Lauren Klauser, I believe is how we pronounce her last name, goes into depth. It's an annual thing. It's actually a semesterly thing, but the spring one is usually larger than the fall.
Right.
And she goes into depth as to what all will be there. There will be several panel discussions. I think there will be 3, one of which talking about like entrepreneurship and building an empire. Not an empire, but your own business, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's our news section for the week. Features, we have, of course, the story that I mentioned earlier about veterans sharing their stories at the luncheon with the Veterans Breakfast Club, as well as we did a, I'll call it a profile, on Phi Beta Lambda. Kelsey Wolf, who's one of our copy editors, has the story on who are they, because they popped up out of nowhere towards the tail end of last semester. And this is Phi Beta Lambda week. I don't know if you knew it. I didn't know it except for the posters that have been hung on residence hall doors. But they are hosting all sorts of events throughout the week. There's a giant dodgeball tournament that I think is happening tonight, or maybe it was last night.
Oh, you know what? I believe it was last night because the gym will be taken up by the Condom Carnival tonight.
Oh, okay.
So it was last night. Yes.
Yeah. So she goes into the story of who's Phi Beta Lambda, and they are a club based off of a fraternity for specifically business students. And then I mean, this doesn't go into it as much, but like, there's the question of, do we have fraternities and sororities on campus?
Right.
The answer is, if someone wants to start one, they can. They just don't have the luxury of having like a house or a floor or something like that. So this is a club / fraternity kind of a thing that is open to anybody who is interested in business or entrepreneurship, and they're doing all sorts of programming, jumping out of the gates with leadership panels and who knows what else. So it's a fascinating group. Brandon Rogers is their head, and he has been diving right into it, and Phi Beta Lambda has quickly become one of the more active clubs on campus. All right, so what else do we have? We have the first book club meeting for the CMI. That's a thing that happened last week.
Ashley
Yes.
Murray was... It is Ashley Murray, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. I always end up confusing Ashley with Chelsea. I don't know why. I'm terrible
gosh.
with names, but I'm better with faces.
Yeah, so you know
That's
who's who.
the thing.
You just,
I know who.
Yeah.
It's just names.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was giving that very big promo around the same time they did the podcast meeting.
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah. So they decided to start up a book club. It wasn't well attended. My understanding is, not including my reporter and a reporter for WPPJ, there were 2 people there. But someone came from Pitt because they saw the CMI's Twitter feed and was like, hey, let's go to see this book club. And so they're making it a monthly thing. It's starting out slow, but they're hoping to grow it as time goes by and as word spreads and as they get their feeling of when to host these kinds of a thing. So, the whole idea behind the first book was, what is it called? The Attention something or other. The Attention Merchants. It's all about the history of communications.
Gotcha.
So, apparently it's an interesting group of people that they're trying to get together, and Eddie Trezino, our co-features editor, has the story. Below that, we have the hidden history behind the Point Park Playhouse. What we want to do is, in the next couple of weeks, we want to explore what's abandoned at Point Park, what's not used, what is used but wasn't, that kind of a thing. And so Carly Bonk, who's one of our copy editors, she has the story of the restaurant that used to exist under the Playhouse, as well as what the Playhouse was before it was the Playhouse. It was 3 separate buildings, and now it's one large... this is the current Playhouse in Oakland. It's one large multi-theater building kind of a thing.
Have you taken a tour of the Playhouse?
I have not. I have been in one theater.
Okay.
The Rockwell, I believe. The one that was a synagogue.
Yes. I believe that's the main stage theater that they use there.
I saw The Drowsy Chaperone.
Oh, that's such a good show.
Oh my gosh,
Good
yes.
cast in there too. I took a tour when I was a part of Copa 251, I believe it is, which is part of the requirement, I think. But once you're actually in the space and you walk through the basement and you hear the story of just how it was an old restaurant and how all these old props and everything are in there, you get very nostalgic, and it kind of like, just hits you right there in the chest when you realize that this space is not going to be ours pretty soon in the next couple of years. It's going to be just kind of there, and we'll have our Playhouse downtown.
And that's part of the motivation behind having this story, so that we can share it with everybody.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it's a really fascinating piece. It's a really fascinating idea behind the piece. And like you said, we don't know what Point Park will do with the property in Oakland.
Exactly.
That is currently the Pittsburgh Playhouse that, when they finish building and putting together and all of the things that go into the multiple theater building, the new Pittsburgh Playhouse downtown, we're not sure what they're going to do with it. There have been talks that, maybe Point Park will demolish the building, maybe Point Park will sell the building, maybe Point Park will build a parking garage on top of it, and, I don't know. There's been a lot of speculation, but nothing solid.
Anything's possible.
So let's enjoy it while we have it, kind of
Right.
deal. Moving right along, 6-7. My favorite part of this week's Globe is the center page spread. It is definitely worth, if you get a chance at any point in the next week, pick this up, on newsstands, if for nothing else, for this center page spread. What we run is all of the mastheads that we've ran in the globe that we were able to scan in. Now, I know there were probably some years that were not included in here, but there are 20 mastheads in here,
Right.
Including the 5 most recent and our first ever masthead. And the idea was to look back at 50 years of the globe. And we do that in 3 different ways. The first way is a 1,800 word, not an essay, but like it's a piece that I did going through each decade of the globe. What happened in the 60s, what happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. Now, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Tom Bork and Sean Schmidt did something very similar back in 1997 for the 30th anniversary of the globe.
Right.
A lot of the source material for up until 1997 comes from there. Partially because our archive is massive, partially because our archive sometimes has holes in it. So it's one of those things where up until 1997, that was a lot of their work mixed with our own work. We found I handed a stack of papers to our layout editor, and I said, "Hey, you want to get us a couple of pictures from each decade so we could throw it into this, into this piece?" And so she did exactly that. And we have the first picture on page 6 is right under the heading the 1960s. It says Sherwin Hall ? That is the week that Point Park, the Board of Trustees, purchased the Sherwin Hotel. And they were speculating what it would be called then. Would they call it the 2 leading ideas that the Globe had at that time was Sherwin Hall and David L. Lawrence Hall. Well, we all know it became Lawrence Hall. So the Globe had it, nailed it on the first shot. But there are some great pictures here, and we'll have what we couldn't fit in print online at ppuglobe.com/globe50. Basically, from this podcast, I'm going to go up and make sure that happens.
Right.
But it's a I can't say it's a well done piece because I wrote it, but like, it is a well-compiled piece and a bite-sized look at each decade of the globe. On page 7, Josh Krupp did 2 really, really awesome pieces. The first one, he reached out to as many editors as he could from the past years of the globe, and we got a hold of Susan Truelove, who was the first editor-in-chief of the globe. And we talked to her about what she remembers. And in March, we're going to have a huge reunion of sorts.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We are opening the invite to, and if you happen to be watching this and you have been a part of the Globe at all in the past 50 years, this is an open invitation. March 18th, we're going to have a reunion of sorts in the lobby of Lawrence Hall. We've apparently never had a reunion. That's what I've been told from people. We could have had a reunion before. I don't want to say that we've never done it, but I do want to say we're trying to get everybody in the same room, and hopefully Susan Truelove can make it. There's a bit in here about Tom Bork, who I spoke about earlier, that was the editor-in-chief in 1997, the second half of 1997. This guy's story is fascinating. He started out as in the Marine Corps. And then he, after 6 years in the Marine Corps, decided to get his education here at Point Park. He served as the editor-in-chief of the Globe. And then he went on for a little while in kind of a career for journalism, kind of not. 9/11 hits. He re-enlists, and he goes to Afghanistan. And then, and he says it right in here. Where is it? When fighting in Afghanistan, Bork applied his journalism skills and carried a notebook with his rifle everywhere he went. And his quote says, "There are people shooting, RPGs going off, and the very second it's over, I'm interviewing guys."
Wow.
There was still smoke coming out of our barrels. To get your reader interested in the story, you have to put them in the story. The closer you are to news happening, the better you can convey the sounds and feelings of the scene. And so after a little while, the Marine Corps caught wind of this. What he would be doing is, in the middle of a battle, at the end of the battle, he would interview guys that he was fighting with from his division, and he would write stories and send them back to their hometown newspapers. So the Marine Corps caught wind of this, and they're like, wait a second, why don't you just be a Marine journalist? He said, okay. So they sent him through like their training, which according to what Josh told me in his talks with Tom Bork, it was one of those he said it was like the easiest training ever because it was his time at the Globe and it was his time at Point Park that taught him how to be a journalist, which is awesome. And then we also talked with fairly recent, it was the spring of 2014 that Andrew Goldstein was the editor-in-chief of the Globe here at Point Park. So we have a taste of, mid-history, early history, late history in Josh's piece. It's really well done. And then below that is it's a listicle of sorts, but Josh decided to, in 2010, we ran a story in our 50th anniversary commemorative edition for the 50th anniversary of the school. And it was 50 for 50. It was 50 Point Park athletes or people, places, things that shaped Point Park sports over 50 years. So what Josh did is he decided to start from scratch and made his list of 50 sports headliners. And the full thing is online, but in print you get the gist. A little bit of everyone makes it. A little bit of every group makes it, from Jerry Conboy, who Josh attributes to being the reason we still have athletics here because he single-handedly saved the athletics program, to Black Diamond 2, our mascot, to the bowling alley that used to be in the Lawrence Hall basement. It's a fascinating read, and it's a fascinating compilation. Definitely worth.
Yeah, it looks... I was going to say, just looking through the names, I mean, you read off those names. Greg Brown's on here from the Pirates.
Uh-huh.
Kevin Taylor, our current athletics coordinator, I think is his title, is on here. And then Fred McLeod, who was just here not too long ago. I mean, Point Park is... Paul Zeiss. Yeah, Point Park has a great history, and Josh did a great job with this list of 50. I mean, this middle 6 and 7 you guys have here are fantastic. This looks great. And, yeah, you guys should be really proud. That is really nice.
I want to get this printed up in like a poster spread for that March 18th gathering.
Charlene Cusick
we will
help you
we
out.
will get that, and I am pretty good friends with the folks down in our print shop that have done. They do the giant front page posters. I should make a note about ads. There are 2 ads on pages 2 and page 4 from advertisers, the Campus Activities Board and Pittsburgh Tattoo Company, that they sent us specific for happy anniversary little ads, which I thought was kind of cute.
Yeah.
So
well, happy 50th, and may the globe live on for 50 more and more.
Oh dear, yeah. We have our opinions section. We did a look back at social progress in since 1967. There's a lot that's happened. There's a lot that hasn't happened. So our business manager, Anam Barshansky, does a look back at that. A couple of pieces on what makes Point Park unique. Those are definitely worth the read. Our Globe's Point this week is talking about Valentine's Day.
Really?
I realize that's out of left field, but everything else is so 50 anniversary. We decided to do something a little different.
A little fluff, something to lighten up a little bit.
Give
Yeah,
them what
something
they
to
want.
lighten them up a little bit.
And
right.
What when Emily Bennett, our editor-elect, said to me, well, we've kind of decided, since everything else, and we'll have a letter from you and this and that, well, what we'll do is we'll run something about Valentine's Day. And I said, well, if you want to tie it back into the historical element, back in the 80s and 90s, what we would do is the edition closest to Valentine's Day. We'd take the entire back page of the Globe and we'd sell it out to people at I think it was $5 a piece.
You could have this is going.
Yeah, and they were all in little hearts, and you could
God.
write Valentine's Day messages in the back of the Globe.
It's so adorable and so gross at the same time.
So we talk about Valentine's Day in our Globe's Point this week, and it's a good piece. It makes me happy on the inside, for whatever that's worth. On page 10, we have a piece that, as I mentioned earlier, what sets Point Park apart from other colleges, and the piece on page 9 is about. There's another piece on page 9 about finding Point Park as your home, adopting it as your home, how it becomes more home to people. And then on page 10, I do have a letter from me, the editor, talking about basically the title of do you know where the Globe title comes from?
No.
Okay. The Globe Theater. The idea is, and it all makes sense when you take a step back, but there's a bit in our first ever edition that explains where the title comes from, and the idea is that these students drew their inspiration from Shakespeare's Globe Theater. The Globe stage was lit using only daylight, raised so the audience could see it, and was completely exposed on three sides to the audience. There was nothing separating the players from the audience, and the two shared an experience rather than having a division between observers and participants. That's from my letter, but what Susan Truelove wrote in that first edition is basically the same thing. The idea is, yes, we are a publication. Yes, we are, putting on a bit of a performance, but we're open. It's daylight, not, artificial light hitting the main subjects. And it's really poetic and fascinating to see that's where it came from. And I ended the same way she ended the one, that whole bit about title. Our stage will be as large as our title Globe implies and as intimate as its namesake. And I think that's just really cool because it's not just a generic name. It's not the idea is also, with us being a performing arts school, we have that stage to it. And it's just, there's a lot of purpose with what has been done since then. And I hope we're carrying on that tradition. I hope we're putting out things for students to look at and say, you know what, I didn't know that. Let's learn about that. And looking from all sides. We've published some frankly racist and horrid things in the past 50 years. But we've learned from it. Because why? Well, because we put it out for everybody to see. And so I think it's interesting to take a look back at 50 years and see how far we've evolved as a paper, but also at our core, we're the same in that we still have that mentality of a stage to be viewed from all sides.
Well, that's what college newspapers have been in the past too, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
exactly.
are a place for people to learn, but they also take a look sort of introspectively into the school, and you find your own writing style in turn. And there's been horrible things written in all kinds of publications. We're revisiting that right now, it seems like, in a lot of what America is telling each other over social media. So let's just assume that the next 50 years will be even more learning experience for you guys.
It's very cool.
In the best way possible.
We found inspiration through Shakespeare.
We found inspiration through Shakespeare. Oh, another point I want to make. I forgot that I made this in here. So, like I said, the 1997 edition was where we drew a lot of our inspiration from. Now, that said, in 2010, we republished pieces that we had done. This edition, we didn't want to republish pieces. We wanted to keep moving forward with purpose. But there was something that I found in that 30th edition from the commentary from then editor-in-chief Sean Schmidt and managing editor, whose name escapes me. It was talk, and when I read this, that was like the night before last. Maybe in 20 years, permitting that the school has not been turned into a parking lot, some editors will want to celebrate the Globe's 50th anniversary in much the same way we are currently celebrating its 30th. And so I go on to say, I assure you this much: the school hasn't become a parking lot. In fact, if there's anything that Point Park lacks, it's a parking lot. In March, we'll celebrate our 50th anniversary. And I find it funny because this was our plan going in, but to see it also in print, like as a prophecy 20 years ago, is kind of wild. So I hope we've done past editors proud by continuing the tradition while also respecting the past that has been handed to us. You say congratulations on 50 years, but to be honest with you, man, I've been here for a year and a half. I occupy such a small bit of that 50 years that I am humbled to be a part of it. I'm humbled to be able to try and respect that, and I hope we've done everybody proud by doing that.
Well, you said that you are going to have an event
Yes.
coming up soon. Plug it again. What are the dates that you're expecting?
There are two things going on. There
Yes.
is something happening actually this Friday, which is open to any Point Park media student that wants to, and we'll have it here at the CMI, just a gathering of student media. It's something to celebrate close to the 50th anniversary. We will have food. It'll be 6 p.m. this Friday. And then on March 18th, 2017, it's a Saturday, at 6 p.m., we will be, right now we are setting it in the Lawrence Hall lobby. If enough alum like come out and tell us, hey, we're gonna show up, we may have to move the event to a larger space. I'd love to see that. But the idea is that anybody that's ever had a part of the Globe is invited to come to that March 18th gathering, and we will have, hopefully, I'm working to get archives down there so people can look through old editions of the Globe, and it's twofold. It's a reunion, but it's also, I'd love to see alumni connect with current students. I'd love to hear stories from the 90s when they changed editors-in-chief 6 times.
Yikes.
In the span of, I think it was 2 or 3 years. It was ridiculous. I'd love to hear stories from that. But also, if we could get somebody a job out of this, a connection that lasts beyond, that was really cool to have the 50th anniversary, that would be even more amazing. But the goal for this is to celebrate what 50 years looks like and have a full-on reunion. So if you're listening and you're interested, that's where that's going, March the 18th of this year. Contact Alumni Relations. They're handling RSVPs and that kind of a thing. If you're an alumni, if you're on Point Park's campus, honestly, I'm going to probably reach out to you myself, and we'll give you those same details in an email. But it's going to be a really, really cool event. I've been working with Alumni Relations in Dean Palo's office in Student Affairs since, October, and we're hoping to make this event something worthy of celebrating 50 years. We're using a lot of the ideas from the 50th anniversary of the school to have something for the Globe on a bit smaller of a scale. So, yeah, that's that event.
That's fantastic. That's exciting. Do you have any other notes? Anything else from the week that was?
I probably should say something about this. I feel bad for the sports department because I don't know the first thing to sports. I do a decent job of reading what goes on, and I know the names, I know of the players, but I'm just like not as Josh Krupp can tell you stats and things offhand. I can't. But one thing I do want to point out is that there was an upset. Our men's basketball team upset a 7th ranked in the nation team, I believe, over the weekend. Nationally ranked IU East, Indiana University East. It was apparently a very wild game. No one expected it to happen, and then it did. So that is huge news for our sports department and for our men's basketball team. And those are the major ones. We have a profile on Tyra James and, of course, Krupp's Corner, where he goes into a bit more depth on what it means to be beating a nationally ranked team.
Well, yeah.
So that's this week.
Well, good.
That is, I counted it last night. I think we ended up with 21 articles over the course of the Globe. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. Be sure to pick up a copy of the commemorative edition. It's insane to watch it all come together, and I'm immensely proud of the staff that we have at the Globe that have worked so hard to get this thing together, and of the past 50 years for making it look cool, you know?
Yeah.
So
no, it's great. It looks fantastic. I'm excited for it to hit the shelves tomorrow. Yeah, that's great. Like I said, I mean, hey, congratulations to all of the people who ever worked at the Globe, because like you said, it's only a year and a half for you, but yeah, for every 4 years where there's turnover, there's been 4 years of people that are enjoying it all of their years at Point Park. So,
and that's what blows my mind, to say that looking back, other than some issues in the 70s, we have not intentionally missed, or we have not unintentionally missed, like, an edition. We have been going strong. Whatever we set out to do, we accomplished it, kind of a thing, for 50 years. And to think that that baton has been passed on and on and on with relative continuity. There is a fun story about how in the 1969, we were in our second year, and we went on strike in solidarity with the Pitt News. We came back, and it was kind of chaos. So they ended up rewriting our Constitution and re-electing an entirely new editorial board. That's the only major restructuring that I am personally aware of. But to have that kind of a continuity in something like a college where it's so mercurial, you have every 4 years it is an entirely new batch of people. It just blows my mind.
That's great.
And it's amazing to be a part of, and it's amazing to say that something like this has maintained fiercely student-run for the past 50 years.
That's something that everybody, I feel like, is very proud of from the Globe for the last 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, Paul, maybe another 50 to come. Let's hope.
50 and 50 more.
There you go.
I have no idea what the next 50 years holds. In fact, I mentioned that. I have no idea what the next 50 years holds. Heck, I don't know what the next 4 years for me holds. So it's one of those things where I don't want to look ahead, but I do want to say, moving forward, we're going to keep the promise. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And yes, we are still on the 7th floor of Lawrence. And yes, we are still printing every Wednesday.
What's the 75th and 100th anniversary? What are those? Does anybody know? Those have a golden is 50.
I think 100 is diamond. I think
because nobody gets 100 anniversaries for their wedding.
Exactly.
But...
No one's expecting that. If you've been a married century, you just win.
There's platinum somewhere. I don't know where.
In there.
It's probably 75.
I don't know.
But either way, that was a good place to end with the actual podcast itself. For the live stream, if anybody's still tuned in, thank you for still being here. Before we sign off and cut up I'll put together the podcast. What else do you want to say before we go? Anything? You know what? I don't think we ever introduced ourselves.
Oh,
oops. Well, we can always do that in the sign off.
Yeah. Well, we can, and then I'll edit it together somehow. But yeah, anything you want to tack on before we ship out?
Again, the 50 years is not an end. We will continue to publish editions. We are already working on issue number 6, which will come out next week. So it's one of those things where if you want to get involved, join the Globe. We are working on some very exciting projects in the next couple of months. Our pitch meetings are at 2:40 right here, 2:40 on Mondays, every single Monday right here at the Center for Media Innovation. If you can't do it, drop us a line at globe@pointpark.edu. If you're interested in reading our content or whatever, go to ppuglobe.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. We'll give more details out about the 50th anniversary events. But other than that, thanks for letting me ramble. And I think I'm just, like I said, I'm immensely proud of the work that my staff has put in, our staff has put in over the past 50 years, but especially in this edition because we put it together in the past couple of days after sitting and debating what would we do next. This is what we came up with, and I hope it's worthy. And I'm really, really proud of what we've put together.
No,
so
it looks great. And like you said, go to ppuglobe.com to find it in the virtual form. It'll hit the shelves tomorrow. If you want to hear our podcast every week, we will be posting it on WPPJ Podcast channel via YouTube. We're going to have a YouTube channel instead of a SoundCloud because we hear SoundCloud might not be around much longer. So we figured a YouTube channel is a little more concrete. We're going to go that direction. So WPPJ Podcasts, visit WPPJradio.com to hear our radio station live 24/7. And I think that's it for this week. We'll have our podcast every week, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Maybe we can get Josh in here next week to talk sports for us.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice. He
can translate some things for us.
Yes.
What's funny is every time he gives us sports pitches, it sounds like a cross between an auctioneer and a play-by-play announcer. And what we have this week is that men's and women's basketball are facing up against IU East and
you
Geneva
just
College.
Josh.
And I have to write this stuff down on a dry erase board, so I am just like speed writing as he's going at it. But I mean, he runs a tight ship over in sports, and he knows his stuff. And
he does.
The whole sports department at the Globe has really shaped itself up in the past, year and a half. we're caring about Point Park sports in ways we've never covered, and I love to see that. So I thought he'd actually wander in at some point during this, but he hasn't.
He is actually going to be broadcasting the basketball games tonight with Allison.
Wow, yeah.
Schubert, I believe is her
Yes,
last name.
Schubert.
So
she's a copy editor for the Globe too.
Oh, there you
For
go.
the Globe.
We've got
It's all in
everybody
the
at the
family.
Globe.
So the men's basketball team from here at Point Park University takes on Carlo at 6 p.m. tonight. You can hear that live over at WPPJ Radio. Find us on the TuneIn app or WPPJradio.com. And then at 8 o'clock, we will have the women's game versus Carlo. So back-to-back from about 6 till what I'd say is about 9:30. So you get 3.5 hours of Josh and PPU basketball, and hopefully they can take a win against Carlo for the men and the women's team. So stay tuned for that.
That would be fantastic,
Yeah.
especially considering some of their turbulence lately.
Yes.
Is the diplomatic way of putting it, as Josh has in his column week in and week out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for the podcast this week.
Let's
I was going to say
our
go
sign
ahead.
offs, guys.
Yeah.
All right, sure. For the Globe podcast, my name is Alex Popacek, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Globe.
For the Globe podcast, Paul Fields, voice talent and all-around contrarian.
For the Globe Podcast and WPPJ, I am Vinny Farinola, the current general manager of WPPJ. And thanks for listening. Tune in every week. We'll have the Globe updates, and we hope you tune in. Cool.
So
think that's
yeah,
it.
it won't be